Welcome to Courtney on Health, heard on malcolmpresents.com and also the Many Shades of Green. And Courtney, what is your website?
CourtneyGravenese.com.
CourtneyGravenese.com. Heard on all three. And you're hearing this right now on malcolmpresents.com, which is a new internet platform featuring podcasts and Zoomcasts that are heard at your leisure. Anyway, take it over, Max.
Yeah, you also forgot to mention podcasts on Spotify and Apple.
Right.
Courtney on Health. So
Absolutely.
Look it up, subscribe. It's important. And you'll get great information. So here we go to the intro. Hi, Courtney, and hi, Malcolm.
Hello.
Welcome to Courtney on Health, which is a Zoomcast series about how to get through these lingering COVID times and other crazy times that we're living in right now, which is why Courtney and I need to have a mental health session.
Today's a great topic.
Yeah, so today's topic fits in. But she gives us tips on nutrition and exercise. Courtney is a registered dietitian, and she has a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. And Courtney's an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area and into the whole wide world, and will help guide you on a path to wellness.
I consult her if I need surgery. Are you kidding?
You kidding?
She knows everything about the body.
I don't think you want to do that. Just saying.
No, we could do the namaste stuff, but after that,
for that.
right, we need somebody, if you need your belly button, checked, you got to go somewhere else.
My umbilical hernia.
I know, we're aware. So anyway, so this leads into the topic that we're going to discuss. This is, I bring some poems and quotes and just to throw a little different things before Courtney gives us all the good stuff.
Oh, really?
So here we go. The name of the poem is Mood for Food. Apropos,
Yep.
By Anthony Cannell. No, Anthony Connell. I thought it was Kennelly, but
actually it was Anthony Knish.
Whatever. I'm Anthony. We're really sorry. It's Anthony Connell. Mood for food. I'm in the mood for food, so don't tease me, but instead you should please me. Give me cake, ice cream, or noodles. If you ask me, I won't eat a poodle. My God, poodle's on the bed.
Yeah.
We won't eat you, Sparks. Now I'm really in the mood for food. So what should you do? You should do is feed me. Feed me, and not try to destroy my mood. Now that we bungled that poem, we'll go to the next thing. So Virginia Woolf has been quoted on the virtues of eating well with this thought: one cannot think well, love well, sleep well, if one has not dined well. That's important. I don't know if she meant the actual food or a night on the town. Either way, it would be fine. On a lighter side, W.C. Fields gives his thoughts on cooking with this line: I cook with wine. Sometimes I even add it to the food. Hey, we like him. Sophia Loren once said, everything you see, I owe to spaghetti. And she's gorgeous. I mean, and Federico Fellini, yeah, she's amazing. And Federico Fellini stated, life is a combination of magic and pasta. So I agree with Sophia and Fellini about pasta to a great extent, but we all know that we must eat a balanced diet, rich in vegetables and fruits, as it helps with feelings of well-being.
Well, I know some of the most erotic movies that I've watched or pertaining to romance and everything has to do with backgrounds of food, either a chef or a restaurant or chocolate. It has to do with eating.
Right.
And my whole thing is, my single days, when I would go on a blind date or go out with a woman, if she was a finicky eater, that was it.
That was the thing. Like
that was the date. If she loved her food and she would, as we did on the actually last week's show, and she tasted it and savored it, she was worth a second date.
All right.
Wow, Malcolm, you were quite the guy. So I got to tell you. So anyway, so with the balanced diet and rich in veggies and fruits, but Alternatively, poor nutrition can affect one's mood and can lead to physical and mental problems, which affect how we feel and think. So does eating a delicious bowl of pasta and having a glass of red wine help your mood? I'm going to ask that to you, Courtney.
Definitely.
If yes, what is in that pasta, the sauce, the garlic, and the red wine that does affect your mood? So Courtney will give us some great info on how food can reduce anxiety and improve your mood and memory. So what say you, Courtney?
Yeah.
What is the definition of mood and its effects?
On food, well, let me tell you, the whole area of food, mood, and the mind. It's certainly not new, but every year that passes, we get a little bit more clearer picture of the data supporting. And we're going to split this in today, foods and sort of supplements, teas. But the data behind the role of food and how it affects your anxiety level, sleep habits, perhaps how it affects if you've got depression, varying rates of levels of depression. So the whole neurological side of the foods we eat is really not only interesting, but we're trying to find out a little bit more information about how to get people to eat their way to a better headspace, better mood, right? So we're going to focus initially on, there are certainly more than two, the two neurotransmitters that they're certainly popular now, they're trending now in terms of food and mood. So you guys, I don't know if you've heard, and I think you mentioned serotonin, Max, in your opener. That's certainly one of them, but the other one is called GABA. Have either one of you have heard of GABA? It's an abbreviation. So it stands for gamma amino butyric acid. So it's a long word, which is why you see it's been shrunk down to just GABA. But so there are foods that contain these versions of these neurotransmitters that we think may actually help improve our overall mood. So I wanted to talk about, because I think it's important to always talk about foods first before we go into supplementing with anything, over-the-counter options for these, because we really need to focus on shifting our diet first and our lifestyle first before we start delving into taking any type of over-the-counter compound. And while we're on that, it's super important, even if you can find these in an over-the-counter version, either a tea or a pill or a supplement to some capacity, it's super important that you have a conversation with your healthcare provider about taking any of these for a variety of different reasons, but primarily because we don't know the interactions that they might have. If they truly do have a physiologic effect in your body, your healthcare provider needs to know that, so that he or she can make the decision along with your healthcare about the best way to proceed. So that's the first thing. What's that? Hi, Bob, baby. What's your mood today, Kat? You got to stay off the table, though. So let's start with GABA. That's the gamma aminobutyric acid. So many of the foods that we're going to talk about, they're going to sound awfully familiar, because guess what? They're the common denominator of so many of the foods that we talk about generally. So, and this is not an exhaustive list, but we know that cruciferous vegetables, so cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, are actually a food source of this GABA. So that's a great thing. Spinach, mushrooms, oats, different grains, so even barley are all of these different foods that you could probably pull into your diet, quite frankly, should be pulling into your diet, not only because they contain GABA and may actually help improve your mood, relieve some anxiety, but because of the phytochemicals that they contain, and we know that they're overall healthy foods. So, all of these different foods we're going to talk about should ring a bell because we've spoken about them before. Sweet potatoes, tomatoes, everyday foods that you may or may not eat, are sources of this particular amino acid, this neurotransmitter.
Yeah, but all these neurotransmitters need a better press relationship, press.
They
All
do.
those are the foods that you mention it to people, they go, ugh, I don't eat that.
I know. And the sad thing is the food, you're right. They need a better PR department. You're absolutely right. Because the supplements are, and I will tell you that, and I think I mentioned that I participated in a seminar right around the first of the year about trending foods. And I will tell you that the whole area of food and mood is big right now. So if you haven't seen it already, you will in all likelihood see things like GABA infused chocolate, or some of these compounds, or certainly teas, certainly supplements. And although the research is really a little fuzzy about its role in supplementation and whether it affects your overall mood, we know that, again, they're found in the foods themselves, the whole foods themselves. So there's no downside to consuming it in the whole food source, whereas we really don't know what the perhaps negative effects of supplementing them would be. In addition to that, there's something, you guys familiar with something called the blood-brain barrier? It's a way for your body, if you think about it, sort of your central nervous system and how, we get some of these compounds to actually affect your brain. They have to pass something called this blood-brain barrier. So quite simply, after something has been ingested and consumed, it's absorbed, and then it gets into the bloodstream, and then it has to actually pass the toll booth to get to your brain to actually affect the changes, the positive effects on your mood that we're looking for. And if it can't pass that toll booth, then it's questionable whether it's going to be effective or not. And what we know right now, based on the data with GABA, is that certainly supplemental, whether it be in the foods or whether it be in a pill or potion or tea form, they're not really sure whether it passes that toll booth right now. That doesn't mean it can't affect the brain, because as we know, you can actually, it can go through the GI tract, right? We are learning more and more about how our guts are a great way to move compounds and things that we need in the body. So the fact that it might not pass this blood-brain barrier might not be, okay, it's not going to work at all. There might be another avenue for it to be effective, and that might be through the gut. So stay tuned on that. But again, these foods that we know are generally healthy, just for all of us, may contain some of these mood boosting compounds that could be beneficial for all of us. And then serotonin, you mentioned that, Maxine. So it has a really significant role in our mood, our emotions, our appetite, and of course our sleep, when you think about the relationship between serotonin and melatonin. So strawberries, in addition to some of the other foods we just mentioned, so some of the, like spinach, for example, bananas, kiwi, potatoes, not just sweet potatoes, but regular potatoes, and coffee. Okay, so coffee's got we have this like crazy relationship with coffee, right? So we know that, a little bit is probably more than just okay. We're seeing all of these other benefits to it. And perhaps too much starts to swing you on the other side, where it might have negative impact on your central nervous system. It may increase heart rate. It may have the untoward effects of too much stimulation versus the positive effects of the serotonin that it might contain. So these are all natural foods found in most grocery stores, things that are relatively easy to get. And, depending on your palate, usually there's going to be a handful of the things that we've spoken about that you may like and can incorporate into daily meals, if not daily, on a weekly basis. But the message really needs to be how much to get into your system and to incorporate them on a more regular basis to have a more steady intake rather than just an occasional bite here, an occasional bite there. Sorry, I'm gonna be right back. 1 second there. Sorry.
Where is she?
I'm sorry about that.
We need I was going to bring up a question. You were talking about serotonin, but there's also melatonin,
Yeah,
which supplements or whatever in terms of helping you sleep. I would say a good part of America does not sleep well. I
yeah,
had a really bad night last night trying to sleep with different interruptions and couldn't get back to sleep.
yeah.
And so my doctor had told me, take one of those melatonin gummies if you really, the times that you're really out of it. But what could one do naturally with food for melatonin?
Well, one of the best natural sources of melatonin, if you don't want to take, the pill version of it, whether it be gummy or a pill, would be tart cherries. Or tart cherry juice, because I don't know about you, Malcolm, but we're not exactly in cherry season around here. But you can
What I
get
find
tart
out
cherry.
in
What's
California,
that?
yeah, what I find out in California, there's nothing out of season.
Oh,
You can find any type of fruits
yeah.
12
Yeah.
months of the year. I would expect that it could be in New York also, because they import food from around the world.
Right, but we've spoken about this. Like you try to set them at, try to eat what's in season. And you guys know, I feel like I say this every time because it's so important to me in terms of an education perspective. We got to put economics in here. And I'm not about to encourage somebody to, buy, tart cherries way out of season over here when they can actually buy tart cherry juice, get the same effect. So I think the most recent research seems to suggest like about 4 ounces in the morning, Maxine, 4 ounces in the evening. And again, you'd have tart cherry juice because it's going to say just tart cherry juice on it. If it's got any other filler juice in there, so pear, apple, anything else, put it back. And you want the one that's 100% tart cherry juice. It's actually very tasty. It's not like unsweetened cranberry juice, by the way. And again, you got to give it some time. It's not going to be like taking, a sleeping pill. It takes a little bit of time to build some up, but that's one of your best sources of natural melatonin. Melatonin is not meant to be taken in perpetuity.
Right.
In fact, it's really best researched in terms of people suffering from jet lag, so short term, and then shift workers. It's not meant to be a part of your daily, everyday lifestyle routine. So there are certainly potential downsides. So I would say, fix what you can and just, Max, you're not alone. Every once in a while, people have a bad night or a couple of bad nights of sleep. And quite frankly, that's actually normal. So
I always thought I was Abby normal. No, people, but so many people, like, it's remarkable how many people, I mean, I won't go near it, take Ambien, the drug Ambien.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on a flight to LA once. This guy next to me said, I'm taking something. I'm going to be out for the entire flight. He was out for the entire flight. He wasn't even, we couldn't even wake him. I asked the stewardess, I said, you got to wake this guy up. I hope he's alive. It's like, it was like, and then he was totally drowsed out. And then he went, Ambien, he said this was the Ambien. I'm like, okay. It was like,
Yeah.
But Courtney, my question to you is, how much of the lack of sleep or people not being able to sleep is more psychological than physiological? How many they can't, the thing that they always say, you can't rest the mind, and the mind plays funny things. So you have problems, or you have, you're not satisfied with where you are. It comes into your dreams or interrupts your sleep.
I think there's no hard and fast rule for everybody in aggregate. I think it's very individual. And of course, mood affects that as well. Since, poor sleep will affect your mood. If you're depressed and you're sleeping a good part of the day, well, of course, that's going to affect your sleep at night. So there's really no hard and fast rule, which is why certainly if you've tried everything holistically, meaning you're trying to change your diet, you're getting fresh air and some light. Remember, melatonin is very much light driven. So if you're spending your inside most of the day, in a relatively dark space without any exposure to natural light, to daylight, you are going to affect its ability to fire off at night. So things like that, that's what I mean sort of holistically. If you've tried all of those steps, you've eliminated potential stimulant triggers throughout your day, and that's still not working. You try positive visualization, you try some of these techniques. People shouldn't suffer. I mean, there's a role for certain medications, and certainly you should seek out help from your doctor. But I think we should all be trying all of these sort of mood boosting, sleep preserving foods and beverages first before we go down that route. And I think it's very doable stuff. I love Sophia Loren's comment, because so we'll leave the 2 neurotransmitters for now, and we'll talk about those amino acids that affect serotonin in particular. We know that complex carbohydrates, so I've heard her make comments about pasta before, so I love it. Complex carbohydrates, okay, will actually help trigger, okay, serotonin levels. So there are some studies that have suggested if you're having trouble sleeping, to maybe push some of your heavier carbohydrate meals or foods towards the end of the day so that it feeds into that release of serotonin. So again, it's an option. It doesn't require, a very big shift in your day. But I'm holding up pasta noodles here, in case you can't see it, but we know that pasta is considered a complex carbohydrate, but certainly some of the other grains, these oats, farro, whole grain wheat, are going to be good, whole, complex carbohydrate options like beans that will certainly help with that release of serotonin. Tryptophan. You guys, no doubt you guys have heard about Thanksgiving and turkey.
The turkey. Yeah.
So we know that, right? Tryptophan is it triggers off that serotonin release. Tryptophan is an essential amino acid, meaning that our bodies do not produce it, so we are required to eat it. I mean, although it is mostly found in animal-based foods, so think poultry, think eggs, think dairy foods, those are the bigger guns when it comes to foods that are high in tryptophan. You certainly can find it in things like seeds and nuts for people who are vegans. It's in there, but just not to a greater extent. So maybe trying to take a look at your sources of tryptophan in your diet to perhaps help stimulate that serotonin release. Just options. Oh, salmon also is a good source of tryptophan. So hopefully I'm giving some suggestions about food-based ways to try and get that serotonin release up to help with mood, help with sleep. Teas.
Well, you're certainly making me hungry.
Yeah.
You're always hungry, Malcolm.
Theanine, L-theanine, another amino acid. And do I have my green tea? One of the teas in here is green tea. So green tea, you may or may not know, happens to be one of the most concentrated sources of that L-theanine. So you might have heard about the research and support of green tea, helping with mood, being a mood regulator. If people are suffering from depression, perhaps helping with, their symptoms of depression. Again, it's not a cure-all. There are no panaceas for any of this, but taken in aggregate and in conjunction with all lifestyle changes may be low enough lying fruit for us all to try. And it's a relatively easy thing to drink, green tea. There is a little bit of caffeine in it. And I've read mixed reviews about whether the decaffeination process of green tea actually removes that theanine from the product. So if you're very sensitive to the small amount of caffeine that's in green tea, it might be something you want to, keep an eye on to see if it's affecting your sleep. But again, in terms of its content, it's one of the greatest sources of that theanine, that compound that we know is going to help trigger both GABA and serotonin levels.
Yes, speaking of tea, have there been any studies about marijuana or the ingredients of marijuana to help you sleep? Because they always say with marijuana, you sort of like become mellow.
I'm sure if you look hard enough, you'll if you
There's
consult Dr.
studies,
Google, I'm sure.
there's studies that back up everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
if you have an opinion, you're going to search for what your opinion is, and you're going to find something
right.
that supports your opinion.
That's right.
Whether the data is correct or whether it was done, you know, in a way that gives you a proper study is questionable. You know, at this point, I used to really not question as much as I question now.
Yeah.
So,
but you're smart too, Max, because you're right. I mean, if you go, you know, like I said, if you go to Dr. Google and type in GABA, I will assure you, you know, particularly since people pay for their front spot, like the results, the people who produce GABA in pill form will have their clinical studies, which, by the way, having a clinical like study could mean 5 people in it, and you know, very little weight to it. So not exactly statistically significant. So you're right, you can find that. So that's why I'm hopeful that sessions like this pull in the data that we have, make it reasonable, really encourage the message that there is no, like, you know, again, panacea for everything, a cure-all for everything, but there are some things we certainly can try that have some decent data, the teas being one of them. So speaking of teas, valerian root tea, you guys familiar with that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
So helpful with perhaps sleep. Some of these are, you know, the whole concept of Ayurvedic medicine is not, it's maybe new to us Westerners. It's not new from an Eastern philosophy. So kava apparently in my lit search and the research that's out there is one of the best studied herbs with regard to being something to help with anxiety and to help with sleep. So
what was that again? Can you repeat
what was that?
the name? Can you
Kava, C-A-V-A, sorry, K-A-V-A,
Yep.
K-A-V-A. And then valerian root, and that's with a V. And valerian root is in a tea form, very pleasant, and it's also in a supplemental form. Again, I know I keep saying this, but it's super important. Teas maybe to less of an extent, but anytime you're buying anything in a supplemental form or considering taking it, you must run this by your doctor so that he or she is aware and can actually go through it with you. Chamomile tea, most people know that is a very wonderful nighttime sleep, I would say, aid. It's very soothing. Black currant tea, we're going to probably start seeing more and more. That's trending right now in terms of an herb tea that might help with sleep and with reducing anxiety. Passion flower is another. I'll put these up when I do my post, you know, my post on Instagram, so that you've got these available to you. But it's, you know, they're nice. The teas, again, with rare exception, are generally okay for everyone to have. Usually 2 to 3 cups a day, you'll see on there, because over that amount, there might be some, you know, reaction to the herbs that might be in there. So, and the last one is ashwagandha. And that's kind of a wonky one. That's A-S-H.
Ashwagandha.
That's a new one to me.
So there are herbs.
I think I had a friend, John Ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Really? Well, now there's a tea, so good for you.
Yeah. But I want to talk about, because it's important, and I think it's important for people to understand the supplement label versus the nutrition fact label. So the nutrition fact label is going to be on foods. I know that seems to make the most sense, but this has got more information for the consumer that's actually got some oversight to it. So the FDA, obviously anything to do with our foods, is going to have some oversight about what we're eating and drinking. So that would, if you'd see a nutrition label, again, you'd have to be aware of the nutrition facts and the ingredients that's in there, but at least there's somebody watching over the food production and what's going in there and has some say in it. Not so much for supplements. So if you've picked up a box of something, whether it be a tea or a supplement, and it says, instead of nutrition facts, the supplement fact label, This should be a message to you that the FDA has not looked at this. Nobody's really looked at this. It's kind of the wild, wild west. So read those labels carefully and make sure you're able to identify what's in there, number one. And number two, even better, would be to look for that USP, that United States Pharmacopoeia label on there, which means that at least a third party has looked at the ingredients and what you're buying is actually in that product, because we
Hey,
see a
hey,
lot of
guys.
issues with that. What's that?
My stage manager just gave me the 1 minute cue. We have 1 minute left.
A
Really?
1 minute cue.
How did that go so fast?
I don't know. Great information.
Yeah, it went pretty quickly. But
Anyway.
you're doing good.
Close our show, Max.
I'll close the show. But just so you know, I'm a fan of the black teas and as well. I like my English breakfast and
You should be, yeah.
my Assam and my Darjeeling and all my fun teas. I like loose tea. I make my own.
Oh, so you're like hardcore, Max.
I'm
see?
hardcore. And then there's of course the bancha and the and the matcha. You know, there's you got teas galore. All right. Anyhow, this was quick, but I'm glad, you'll post more information about this online. So thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and visit her website, CourtneyGravenese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and TheManyShadesOfGreen.com. Courtney on Health, smart sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness, and we'll catch you again next time.
I should just remind you guys out there, if you there are a lot of information on this show. You can always go back and play it again. Take notes. Thank you very much, Courtney. Thank you very much, Max.
Thank you. Have a good week.
All right. Have a good
See you
week.
next week.
See you next
Bye.
time. Bye-bye.